Hi, I'm Virginia, the founder of the International Medical Writers Association. And here with me today is Valerie. Valerie has a special presentation for us today. Would you like to explain more about your background and what you're going to present today, Val?
Hi everyone, I'm Val. Thank you so much for having me. Today I would like to show you how I use SEO thinking as a mindset for me to write blogs, and how I've used this also to attract clients like a little magnet.
Awesome. I love that. If you're unfamiliar, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. So, Val, go ahead and start your presentation.
Hi everyone, so let's talk about SEO, and I have some additional information about me. I'm Val. I'm a freelance SEO health writer. I've also been doing SEO editing, and I'm also doing SEO strategy as part of my work, and I've been doing that since 2022. Before that, I spent more than 10 years in healthcare marketing in corporate environments, and I've been teaching SEO since 2024. I'm very international. I'm French, but I lived in the UK. I spent 10 years in Hong Kong, and I'm now in Spain. My clients include nonprofits, e-commerce, practitioners, clinics, and I've also worked outside of health with brands like Klaviyo. My love story with SEO didn't start very well, I have to say. I thought this was very technical, so what I'm hoping with this presentation and my work is that it doesn't have to be. And really what I understood with SEO is that it's more about understanding the audience, what they're looking for, and in which format, and serve this in a better way than what's already existing online. And with this mindset, I hope I can help you to demystify the process. Don't worry if you don't know anything about SEO, I'm going to explain this a bit further. So what is SEO? As Virginia mentioned, search engine optimization. And you may also hear GEO these days with generative engine. It's basically when people search for information online, and anything with a search bar can be optimized. And what we want is for our website or client's website to be found at the top, and for them to be visible, and eventually for people to land on their website and maybe convert at the end. So really what SEO is about trying to get our clients visible, to get them some leads, adding to their credibility and authority. So have some clients for which this is the most important thing. And a big part of that is coming from the blog, because the blog is the part of the website we can expand, like a book, to establish authority around their areas of expertise. And for some of my clients, what is very sexy about SEO is to have their website act as something that's really evergreen, that keeps going for many years, and keep attracting them leads. So for us, if we do this to our own websites, this would be the same objective, where we want to get found when people search for information related to our services, or even specifically looking for our services. I wanted to show you what some examples of results look like. So what you can see here in blue and purple is the visibility from Google and the number of clicks from when people find the website and click on it from Google. And we still tend to focus on Google, even though people can search through AI these days as the main mean for searches, although all the concepts everything I'm talking about here apply to both Google and AI searches. So the first example is a freelance medical writer. And what we can see happening is nothing at first for a few months, and this is over a year, where we finally see some leads happening through the website. This is very typical of SEO, when nothing happened at first, but this is also where most of the work is happening consistently every month, producing and updating content. The other example you see on the right-hand side is over 2 years. So this client is e-commerce, and when I started working with them, they already were doing some SEO. And what you can see is that the growth keeps happening over time. It's like not really stopping ever. Some of those blogs are bringing leads every single day. And at the bottom is my little website, where I started to do SEO last year, so it's still pretty recent. We always think very long-term in SEO. And as you can see, it's happening slowly but surely. And then for us, what the good thing is we don't need big numbers. We need the right people to find us. So I'm happy to say that I started to see people signing up on emails, and then as I've had 4 clients so far since then from doing this. And I think this is very representative of our freelancing life, where we put a lot of work and we don't see anything happening in return. But then finally it starts growing and it compounds over time, all of our efforts. So that's really the kind of graph I have in mind when I start doing something to keep me going, so that I don't give up before the growth starts happening. And the other key concepts I'm explaining here, they're coming from guidelines from Google, and these are not new. They've been released in 2014 and updated since then, but those concepts were quite similar, and I've used this from the beginning of my SEO, and I found that following those guidelines as my own guidelines allowed me to future-proof my content over any updates that's happening, and also getting this content visible on AI. So on one side, and this is the way human raters should evaluate content. So you have on one side how helpful and relevant it is, and on the other how trustworthy it is. So this is giving you a set of trust signals to help us evaluate content the way readers evaluate it. Very important concept is in search is human search intent, and I like to call it this way to remind everyone that there's a human on the receiving end of our writing. And what I'm trying to do here is to understand why this person grabbed their phone to search on Google or AI. There must be a reason, right? So there's, on one hand, the type of information they want to get from us that I want to understand. And on the other hand, I also want to understand their emotional state. If they're concerned, worried, anxious, that's quite typical for many health queries that are very emotional. I also want to understand where they are in their journey. If they're already aware of their condition, or if they're looking for a diagnosis, then my approach is going to be completely different. Another thing is the content needs to be up to date. Recency is a trust signal. We tend to trust more what's recent, and we also want to make sure the content is still accurate and up to date. In healthcare, that's even more important. The other thing is trustworthiness, which is explained by Google as a framework, and they call it EEAT. So if you don't remember the acronym, if you don't do SEO, it's fine. But the concept of EEAT is really, really interesting for us to apply to content. So EEAT is basically a combo of lived experience, expertise, how we bring authority, and other trust signals that we can add. And I will show you how it looks like in practice. We'll deep dive around intent first and then EEAT, so that you see how it is in my daily work. And just bear in mind that some of that authority is carried by the brand you're working for, the client, the website, if they had a website and they've been doing SEO for a long time. All of that is going to have a weight in the way that Google will trust this content. And what's very interesting these days is that this authority and what is looked at by Google and by AI is even beyond the page and beyond that website, is across the whole of the internet. So if you're someone who has many bylines already, you may think about also publishing on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a trusted platform. So everything we do for our marketing is now compounding into adding authority to our work as an author when we're being published for blogs. So if you've been doing a good job at building authority, now it has a huge weight, and people can find your content from AI on top of everything else. So intent, first I want to show you an example of how to better satisfy the intent, which is what we should be trying to do here. This is a real outline from a real writer who accepted to share this work. And the query that was chosen here is how to get rid of stretch marks. So first of all, even if I don't know anything about it, I can guess that the worry is not so much about do I have stretch marks or not, but more how to get rid of them. And then I'm hoping there's a permanent removal system in place. And if that's not the case, we need to manage how we provide this information. But essentially, I will go through the outline and see where the key answer to that query is, which is number 7. I hope you can see that in this case, which means I have to scroll and go through a lot of content before I reach the key answer. And that's exactly what we're trying to avoid in a blog. We're trying to bring value and key answer as high as possible so that people can see it. And if they want the details, we bring the details later. And that kind of structure and mindset we apply to every subsection of a blog. So bring the answer first, details later. And if you observe what Google is trying to do, even if it's not perfect, from this AI overview coming at the top of Google, they're trying to provide that quick answer, which is giving us a list of treatment options. And obviously, we want to bring more information that we can see from this AI overview, which everyone has access to. For EEAT, here is a sample of what I'm always doing with SEO, and this is typical of a top ranking blog. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to identify why this blog is trusted by Google in the first round. And then I will think of how I can do a better job in terms of being more relevant and helpful. But the first thing I would see here as a trust signal is the brand, the name of the website, Healthline, because it's a famous health publication. So they tend to be at the top and already quite trusted by Google. Then from the title, you can see it's cardiology related and it's a cardiologist sharing their own experience. Just like me sharing my tips and showing you if I apply them to my work, I'm getting results. It's a way to get you to trust me a little bit more. That's what's happening here. So it's a mix of sharing lived experience with expertise. That expertise is also coming from the author. So we have a picture. We can see she seems to be real. She's holding credentials as an MD in cardiology in the US, which is adding expertise. The writer himself doesn't have any credentials, but that's okay because he's using insights from an expert. And the date is pretty recent. I would say anything in the last 3 years, we tend to trust more, and it would be even better if it was even fresher than that. In number 6, you see full transparency in the editorial process. We know exactly who did what and when. That's also something we need to trust. We tend to trust a little bit more, and what Google will be looking at. In number 7, we see the way that we back up any claim. They should be linked to the actual source, and that would be a research paper, clinical paper, an official source that's trusted. So that research word is linked to the actual research paper. Now, whether the statement is accurate or not is a different question. Not everyone will be able to assess that. But the fact that it's fully transparent and I can find the source is leading me to trust the statement more. And number 8 is an example of a quote from the cardiologist, and that is also a typical thing we do in SEO is to try and bring interesting insights, and those insights in this example are even linked to the science behind that. So this is showing you a combo of trust signals that we can then apply to our own blogs. And last but not least, a few final tips of the things that I keep seeing, as some of those things can be fixed quite easily. The first thing is make sure the main title, the H1 of your blog, there's only one H1 per blog post. If you duplicate it, what it does is that it's going to confuse Google and it's a bit destabilized. It doesn't know what your blog is all about. So big impact and easy fix. And then the rest of the blog is structured in this way with headings. So it should be, each section visually should be quite separate from each other so that it's easy to skim read through. Then you have short paragraphs, short sentences. Language should be very clear and adapted if you're working for the general public in particular. We use bullet points, numbered lists, and I love to see tables for comparison because they're much easier to read and they break up the text. Then we add visuals, infographics, videos, anything that can contribute to explain the concepts you're trying to explain is valuable. And besides linking to sources, as you saw earlier, we try and link each blog post to each other when it makes sense. It's telling Google, okay, those topics are related. I'm building authority around these topics. And the second thing is they're used to lead the reader to their next question so that they can get more information or they can even take action if they're ready to go. So all of those tips, we saw EEAT, we saw how to understand the audience and trying to be the most helpful and relevant as possible. All of that is what I'm using in my own little content ecosystem as my own marketing. So that's what I wanted to show you, and how I'm getting SEO clients. How I started and how I'm getting them today is a little bit different. So I'm going to share the story of how I got there in the end. But I want to remind everybody that it is not my first year of freelancing. I'm in my 4th year. And what I've observed over the years is that as I started to get clients, I would typically drop my outreach and then suffer from a lack of clients and so on and so forth. So it's been a bit chaotic at first. And then I've built up step by step, one thing at a time, an inbound system, which inbound means exactly like SEO, when clients reach out to you instead of us having to reach out to them. I've built up on that so that I stabilized my pipeline in the long term, and I do feel like it's been more stable in the last couple of years. So I wanted to show you my current ecosystem, but again, this is something I've built over the years. What I started doing was mostly outreach and applying to jobs. I used Upwork at the time. The idea here was to get projects as quickly as possible. And in my case, I really accepted anything because I didn't have social proof as a freelancer, because I didn't know what I was going to do and if I was going to like it. So I wanted to do many different things. I didn't mind so much about the price because I was focused on building social proof. I think that's very important. And that's okay as long as you leverage that and use that proof to go and get a better client next. So that gave me some clarity, and that's how I found out I quite like SEO. But today, most of my clients are coming from LinkedIn. So what I did from the beginning with LinkedIn was to post twice a week. I wasn't trying to post every day. Twice a week, I was just trying to be consistent. And I had no idea what I was going to communicate because I didn't know which kind of projects I would do. So as I start liking SEO, I started to specialize. It got easier and easier over time. And now I'm posting 5 times a week. I'm also doing my website SEO. As you saw, it's been pretty recent and it's starting to work. I've had some referrals from fellow writers, so always keep networking as you do. I built even my own little community with writing challenges, networking sessions, and emails, but that's for writers. I have webinars, and I'm just trying to be present on Instagram and YouTube, but honestly, that's as much as I can do. And I want, keep adding to it, as this is a lot. I don't expect that you have all of those and you don't need to. My best advice when I see this, and if I had to start again, is to focus on 1 or 2 things. And if you want to have both shorter term and longer term stability, having a combination of outbound and inbound is a good idea. But really experiment and find what works best for you in terms of in which way you can be consistent with the time and resources you have now with your marketing. That's the most important thing. I've just not going into the details of outreach, but I just want to say I know that that's a difficult one and I've struggled myself. My best tips, or what you can see from those examples, is an example of when I don't have time, but I do it anyway. And what's most important here to see is I'm making some effort to always be personal. So the message I'm sending to this person cannot be exactly the same as what I'm sending to somebody else, meaning at least take the time to have a look at their profile, or if they've been posting on LinkedIn. I'm trying to find something to connect, something we have in common, ideally, and it's easier to connect. But for example, here I'm just saying congrats on your new position. So I picked up that he's just joined as a manager for this company, and I was interested in their topic. So that's all I did. If you want to build this up a bit more, I would link to a couple of samples, not my portfolio, but the samples, so that they can save time. And I select something that's relevant to them. And also this example is showing you that it can take a long time before getting any response, and that's okay. More recent example is me at 10:30 p.m. with my phone sending a message because I knew I would forget otherwise, just because I picked up this was a topic that I've written about exactly, so that was relevant. Obviously, I should have linked to the article, but never mind. Luckily, I got a response and I could share my article later on. So it's just showing that I try to keep this going even today, even if it's only from time to time, even if I have my LinkedIn and everything else. But make it personal, make this effort. It really makes a difference. I'm being approached myself as an editor by writers, and I see this all the time, very generic messages. And I don't even know what to reply sometimes because there's nothing about me in there. In terms of EEAT, the trust signals that I've discussed, I apply this to my own content and my own work. So really, it's really helpful for you to have some ideas of what you have from your personal experience and expertise that you can bring to the table. And that's going to be an idea of your positioning and what you need to communicate about. In terms of proof, the obvious one is portfolio. And the good thing is you can do it by yourself with a couple of samples. Then additional proof would be collecting testimonials. So I'm going to show you some tips with that. And then having some case studies. Those are the most powerful tools you can have in your kit to convince clients that you can do a good job. And if you're already established and you already have all of this, make sure you keep them up to date, because we saw recently the trust signal. And you can start working on your external mentions. So where do you appear besides your bylines? Are you visible online? So you might want to start. Again, you don't have to do everything, but think about publishing on LinkedIn. That will help you a lot, because LinkedIn is a trusted platform. It can be any other platform. It can be a speaker at a conference. It can be being quoted as an expert in another blog, etc. This will help you build authority in your field. So this is how I started. Very quick testimonial, quick project, but I wanted to accumulate this proof. And now this looks much more insightful, because now I'm structuring the way I'm collecting testimonials by asking those 4 questions. 1, the main problem they faced before starting to work with me. 2nd, the main thing they liked about me, if there's one thing. Then which kind of results, because we don't get to see that as writers, but this can be interesting to know what kind of results they've had from our writing. And then to whom they want to recommend my services. Basically, if I get this information, I have my whole copywriting sorted for me. So everything I communicate then is a lot more clear. And of course, it's always good to receive a testimonial, isn't it? I just want to say you can collect this by writing, if they're okay to write a testimonial, or it can be through a call. But I always refrain from writing this myself, because sometimes they don't have time and they tell me, oh, you can write this for me. Then I'm not happy to do that, because then I'm losing the value of seeing which words and what is coming to their mind, which is why I want to get those testimonials in the first place. Case studies. I know they take a lot of time, and you may think you don't have any case studies when you begin freelancing, but actually you can take any samples you've published, even if it was by yourself, on your portfolio, and just explain the reasoning behind your writing. So it's just telling that little story. It doesn't have to be as comprehensive as what you can see, what I did here after many years of working on SEO with clients. And the good thing about SEO is you can have eventually some metrics to show, which is bonus. But really, even if you don't have those metrics, it's more about explaining how you think, what you approached, and what was the end situation. So when I started, I didn't have that, but I had very short case study as a PDF that I would send to clients along with the testimonials that I had. And every single potential client would see at least a little bit of proof from me, and then I build up this proof over time. And I apply the same concepts to my LinkedIn profile. Again, we saw with SEO, we want to bring value at the top of the page. And the thing with LinkedIn is that it's keeping recommendations at the bottom. So it doesn't have to be everywhere like it is on my profile, but make sure somewhere at the top in feature section, about section, you have some proof there, some testimonials or case studies, so that people have those trust signals quickly when they look at your profile. Those are the simple things that really have an impact. So really, all I'm saying here is don't do as I do so much, but try to see the principles and concepts behind what I do. And this is something you can take away for yourself. Like if you're at the start and you don't know how you're going to get clients, try with outreach and then try to implement one inbound technique and go from there. Then in terms of trust signals, I cannot emphasize this enough, but social proof is everything. It's the thing you need to focus on, if anything, at first. I like to have my objectives, especially if you're doing things for the first time, as something that is within your control, something you can do. For example, if I want to get fit, my objective is to have in front of me to complete 100 fitness sessions, only 20 minutes a session. And I know I'm not going to reach 100. I'm just going to have that objective so that it's long enough for me to keep going and build that habit. And once I'm going back to doing this twice a week, I'm happy with myself. So that's okay. So it's kind of the same thing that we're doing with our marketing. If I had to start again, I would have maybe a target of 100 people I want to contact, but hoping that by that time, there's something positive happening in the meantime. I also try to make LinkedIn posting or anything where you feel that you need to put yourself out there, which is not easy, a little bit more enjoyable by focusing on the learning process instead. So I've never posted on LinkedIn before. Therefore, even if I post once a week, I should be happy with myself. I'm getting better at it, and I overcame the fear. So that's already something to be celebrated. And last but not least, when freelancing gets a little bit difficult or you feel demotivated, I find it helps to have in mind our long-term direction, and that's what's driving you to freelancing or medical writing. If you're someone who is very involved with patient education, fighting misinformation, or simply because you want to spend more time with your family, just reminding ourselves of those objectives we had in the first place is a good way to help us to keep going, really. That's it from me. Thank you so much for your attention.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that presentation, and I hope the audience did too. And there were lots of nuggets of helpful information in there in how to make SEO work for you as a writer, but also as a strategy to help you to find clients as well. So really amazing work. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Virginia.
All right. So if you want to learn more from Val, you can check out her links in the video description box below. And thank you so much for watching or listening, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Bye.
Bye.